To begin the meeting of the Metropolitan Council. Today is Wednesday, May 9th, 2018, and I call the meeting to order. First order of business is the approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is adopted. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes from our April 25th meeting. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move approval.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is adopted. At this point in the meeting, members of the public who wish to address the council on matters not on the agenda may do so. I would just ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to the council? Not seeing anyone, so we'll keep going. If we move down to the consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is adopted. Next, we'll move to the reports of the standing committees. Community Development, Councilmember Commerce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Community Development Committee has one item to propose here at the full council, and that is item 2018-95. It's a motion to revise the deadline for review of amendments to the 2030 comprehensive plans. Members, after adopting Thrive, the Council adopted policies to implement Thrive in the review of local comprehensive plan amendments. These policies, as you know, addressed forecasts, plan review standards, and associated timelines. The policy that we adopted at that time also included a June 30th, 2018 deadline for submittal of amendments to 2030 comprehensive plans. Over the last several months, a number of communities have expressed concern about meeting the June 30th deadline for comprehensive plan amendments, particularly given that the development market is stronger today than it has been, and also that there's an unpredictability in where many amendments may occur following a continued trend of converting land guided for business use to residential uses. So, Madam Chair, on behalf of the committee, I move that the Council revise the June 30th, 2018 deadline for review of amendments to 2030 comprehensive plans to December 31st, 2018, and also advise communities in a number of ways. There are 5 ways listed in your business item, so I'd like to move that on behalf of the committee.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this item? I think this is a really good proposal and helps to meet the city's concerns on meeting their comprehensive plan amendment. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. The next item is the Committee on the Environment. Councilmember Rummel.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Business item 2018-109 is the proposed policy amendment to the Water Resources Policy Plan. The Council received and reviewed public comments on 3 alternative wastewater use-related amendments to the Water Resources Policy Plan as a result of work completed at the Water Reuse Policy Task Force. Staff have developed recommended policy language that includes a regional cost share based on the regional wastewater system benefit only. The proposed language has previously been shared at the Committee of the Whole as well as the Environment Committee level and is now being brought to this committee for approval. I recommend the recommended policy language is included in the business item. Therefore, I move that the Metropolitan Council adopt the recommended wastewater reuse-related amendment to the Water Resources Policy Plan that includes a regional cost share based on regional wastewater system benefits only.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is adopted. And we move on to the Management Committee. We have 2 items on policy updates. Councilmember Chavez, would you like to?
Thank you, Madam Chair. These are business items 2018-099, the Affirmative Action and Equal Opportunity Policy Update, and item 2018-100, Discrimination, Harassment, and Inappropriate Behavior Policy Update. The Human Resources Director Marcy Simon and Office of Equal Opportunity Interim Director Aaron Koski are here, and they are going to provide a brief presentation regarding the upcoming sexual harassment awareness and prevention campaign and updates two of the related council policies. Following their presentation, I'll move the two items.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair and Council members. My name is Marcy Simon. I'm the Director of Human Resources, and with me today is Aaron Koski, who is the Interim Director of the Office of Equal Opportunity. And we're here today to tell you about an initiative that was approved and suggested and recommended by our Chair and our Regional Administrator. And I'd like to just review with you how we're planning to move forward with this initiative. So we have been asked as an organization to participate in the governor's request for a statewide review of our sexual harassment and processes and policy. And we also wanted to respond to guidance that was created by the MMB around ways that agencies could really take this issue seriously and work to make their policies and their processes more robust. We want to build the council's workplace culture of inclusivity, safety, and respect. And it's important to us to really increase employees' awareness of the expectations of behavior, also of their awareness of how to report complaints and issues that come up. And of course, managers and supervisors are a big part of this, and how to respond to complaints that come up and how to really address those workplace behaviors and really to build a culture of inclusivity and respect within their respective work environments. And then we also wanted to, as a part of this, to really improve and strengthen our complaint process, because we know that there are some ways that we can improve that.
Madam Chair, Council members, Aaron Koski, Interim Director of Equal Opportunity. This slide identifies multiple policies and procedures that are being reviewed in support of this effort. The business items in front of you, 4-2 and 4-2-1, are part of this review. The purpose of the review and updates was to ensure that these policies are compliant with all applicable laws, that they properly support this sexual awareness and harassment awareness and prevention campaign, and finally that they meet the standards of plain language, as these will be ideally reviewed by many council staff. Also, we look forward to updating our investigative procedures, as Marcy mentioned, to help streamline the process for our employees and our customers who have complaints that are related to protected class, specifically sexual harassment complaints.
So the training that we've designed and are ready to launch is instructor-led training based on MMB's sexual harassment content, but customized to the council's environment, our policies, and our reporting structure. This training is going to be scheduled for May and early June, and it does include you all. We would like to spend some time with you reviewing the policies and procedures, and really we'll show you a little bit here about the objectives of that training. But also executive and senior leaders will get that same training. It will be instructor-led, 2-hour training. It'll be delivered by Marcy Cordes, who is in Human Resources, and Takia Jefferson in the Office of Equal Opportunity.
The objectives of this training, of course, are for all to understand the legal definition of sexual harassment, understanding the key behaviors that constitute harassment, and most importantly is to review and understand the applicable council policies and procedures that help ensure a inclusive and positive work environment. And of course, as we alluded to, we'll be unveiling and introducing a more customer client friendly complaint process that should benefit this effort.
So in terms of how we're going to roll this out, we are every year for the last 3 years, we've been really using the spring as a way to advance and to refresh the respectful workplace content. 3 years ago, we had all employees go through 5 modules or 4 modules of training around respectful workplace. and you'll see them listed here. And so what we're going to do is really roll the sexual harassment awareness and prevention within that whole context of respectful workplace. And you can see that the second module will be specifically toward sexual harassment awareness and prevention. Now, these courses, we're right now refreshing all of them. And we will be asking all employees to complete those trainings again. So it's been 3 years since most people have seen the content. And so it makes sense for us to be refreshing that on a regular basis. Now, this content is going to be delivered to our employees via web-based training. This is very interactive training. There's not just you can't just read the bullets and click through. There's places to think of examples, have to interact with the content, and then people have to complete an assessment at the end to make sure that they've understood the content. The audience for this training will be all managers, supervisors, and employees, and the completion time frame will be May through September. I just wanted to point out, too, that there is the workplace violence prevention and incident response, as well as the run, hide, fight, surviving an active shooter event. And, of course, this is also timely and important for us to keep it in front of our employees.
Marcy, can I just interrupt you for a question? So are all of these trainings required, or are they just available to all if folks decide they want to take all of them or just specific ones?
Madam Chair, it will be required of all employees to take all.
Okay.
Right. And so what we're going to do is send that out. We'll see that actually in HR Connect tomorrow, that civility and respect in the workplace will be launched out on the Learn Center for people to start taking on the 17th of May. And then the middle of June, you'll see the next one, the middle of July, and so forth. So it'll take through the end of September, or actually through the middle of October for those to be completed. So one a month, shouldn't be too hard, and the content takes probably around 15 minutes to complete.
Okay, we have one question. Member Reynoso.
Just a quick question on rolling this out. Is this going to include our drivers, our police officers?
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, Council Member, that's the next slide. So good.
Oh, look at that.
Segment. No, this issue obviously is important to the council and employees, and obviously, as you mentioned and referred to, some of our operators and frontline staff don't have accessibility to interactive web-based training. So without a doubt, we're considering this a campaign, and the additional training opportunities include customized training at the garage level for operators. Additionally, we will be offering more finely tuned training to continue this effort upon request. So visiting a plant or a garage, if asked, we will definitely accommodate those requests. And then we really believe that this is a nice bookend, which would take place early next year in 2019 during our every 2-year manager, supervisor, TTMS type council-wide training. So kind of a natural bookend. And then throughout the year and moving forward, we're going to incorporate this refresh and this sexual harassment awareness curriculum for all our employee onboarding, our new manager orientation, and then also make it available upon demand from our Learning Institute.
Madam Chair.
Great, thank you, Member Reynoso.
Just one last question, I promise. So to what extent are we going to roll this out to include our metro mobility? Because, I mean, that's certainly something that I think could be a concern for some people, and that these are vulnerable adults.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, Council Member, that's not something that we've had in our plan. I think that's something we should really check in with Nick Thompson about and see if there's a way that we could share our resources with our contracted services as well.
Okay, thank you. Member Munt.
Madam Chair, Marcy, I've been following best practices for sexual harassment training, and one of the things that's critical is robust bystander training so that if perhaps a victim isn't comfortable coming forward, if somebody observes the harassment, they too have a responsibility to report. Is that going to be part of our training?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Munt, absolutely. That will be a part of that module that we'll be designing for all employees. Absolutely.
Great, thank you. Member Schreiber.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Who are the trainers going to be? Are they going to be internal staff, or will you contract with an outside company who are who
Madam
know
Chair,
how to do
council
this?
member, the two trainers that we'll be using are Marcy Cordes. She's our Chief Labor Relations Officer, and she is legal counsel by trade, and also Takia Jefferson, who also has a law degree. And both of those two are using the content was created by the legal team at MMB. And so we're really taking a look at all the best practices and then also customizing that to our population. And the manager of learning and organization development, Geraldine Sushko, is part of that design team to make sure that we're creating content that's, friendly to the audience and, is interactive in a way that really helps people understand the content.
Thank you.
Member Dorfman.
Madam Chair, one of the things that's changed maybe over the last 3 years, or at least there's greater awareness, is around gender, respecting people's gender identity. Is that incorporated into this new series of trainings you're doing?
Madam Chair, council member, I don't believe that we're specific to that. Some of the other work that we plan to do that I think is supportive, and it's really a couple of slides ahead. I don't know, I go there, is to really to develop employee competency around gender and culture.
Okay.
Both, because we really feel that by creating a more inclusive environment, that will help us in the environment around sexual harassment, and I believe that this is an issue that we can't ignore these days. So while it's not specific to this training, we really see it as a part of a whole process as we look at how do we build cultural competency among our employees. I mean, some of that content is getting designed into our Learning Institute, but also we have sort of an annual calendar of events. I know the Office of Equal Opportunity has also already sponsored a brown bag session around gender. So transgender.
Gender identification.
Specifically, so.
Well,
Member
I
Dorfman.
know, I know when I'm going to meetings now, more and more frequently, when we're doing introductions around the table, people will say, and please indicate the pronoun that you would like to be referred to. And that's very important to people, to be recognized for who they are. So, thanks.
Great, thank you. Can continue.
I did want to say that another piece of work that we want to do around here is to develop our capacity for employee resource groups, and then to create and really support first out of the gate a resource group for leading as women at the Metropolitan Council. So what's happening right now is that we've begun to research best practices in other organizations, especially some of our public sector organizations. And we're going to be building out that concept of ERGs for council implementation. And then we want to begin then by, actually inviting participants into that. We will include analysis of our data by gender. There is also a couple of other, one other group that's already meeting over at Metro Transit called Advancing Women in Transit. And so we don't look to supplant their effort, but to perhaps invite them in or to learn from them and create one that includes all council women. So we'll see how that group emerges. And we're hoping that we can get this rolling sometime between the second quarter and the end of the year. So one of the things that we know, Hennepin County has done a really nice job with their ERGs, is that we will really be looking for executive sponsorship of those, so that when we created an employee resource group, we're using that group, and that group is getting access to leaders, and we can really use them in a productive manner for the organization, as well as help them to feel connected to one another and to see themselves in our work. I'd already talked about that second bullet point. We have already developed a comprehensive communication plan for this, and it was launched by Wes Koistra in the Wire 2 weeks ago. And then these coming weeks now, Brian Lamb has a column, Lisa Thompson has a column, and HR Connect tomorrow will be starting to talk about when employees can expect to see the web-based training in the in their Learn Center mailbox. We will also use our annual employee engagement survey to get a handle on the current environment perceptions of women and men in this organization around this topic. Last year, Metro Transit had some special questions for bus operators in particular, around really more their experience out in the street, but also had some internal questions. And so we'd like to advance or really build on those and see if we can get a little deeper dive into people's experiences here at the council. So that should give us a platform upon which to really take this to the next level for our employees. So some of the key messages that we're putting out as a part of this initiative is that it really takes all of us to create a respectful work environment, to inform employees that we're working to update our policies, our processes, that we have committed to resources to support employees who report harassment, and to help managers address those issues, and then to just urge employees to contribute in their own way to helping sustain a respectful workplace. So one of the things that has been kind of my pet peeve is that we spend a lot of time in our policies and procedures about thou shalt not, what you can't do. But it's a little bit like when you're raising children, and they told me that if you tell a kid don't slam the door, the only picture they have in their brain is about slamming the door, right? So I feel like we can do a better job of helping employees understand what it is we're asking of them to help ensure a respectful workplace. So these are some of the things that I really took from our policies and procedures. What's the spirit of what we're asking for? So these include, number one, valuing the contributions of others. Number two, to act professionally and to build trust among coworkers, among customers. To be open and willing to interact cooperatively. And this includes within the community, within our facilities, in person and online. The next group is about to develop, and I think this is really important, to develop and employ skills to resolve conflict in a healthy and productive manner, because I really think that at the heart of many of these situations, and in general, I'm not going to say specifically sexual harassment because that can be really difficult, but to really use your conflict management skills in a way that helps to resolve issues, to be able to say what you see and have a productive conversation, to be accountable and to hold colleagues accountable when it comes to behavioral issues, and then to use the channels and the resources available to you to help address those. And then finally, to address and report incidents, policy violations, which I think really gets to part of what you're talking about.
Terrific. Are there any other questions on this item? Member Dorfman.
One question. So in looking at just respectful workplace policies, do you address or try to address awareness around unconscious bias as you do this work?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Dorfman, we just launched an unconscious bias web-based training for all managers and supervisors. Right. That's actually due to be completed by May 15th. Now, this is going to also be rolled out to employees. We wanted to do it first with managers. We'll also be including that content in the training that we give to all of our panel members who serve on selection panels. So yes, it's important to us, and we're beginning that process. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Thank you.
Terrific. Any other questions or comments? Well, I would just say I appreciate the presentation and hearing that we have a really robust plan on how to try and create an inclusive environment for our current employees. I think it's really important just for overall health and wellness and safety, but also in terms of attracting people to work at the council. So appreciate the update. Member Chavez, would you like to read the motions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll move these items separately. First, for the business item 2018-099, the affirmative action and equal opportunity policy update, I move that the Metropolitan Council approve the updates to the affirmative action and equal opportunity policy.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is adopted. Member Chavez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For business item 2018-100, the discrimination, harassment, and inappropriate behavior policy update, I move that the Metropolitan Council approve the updates to the discrimination, harassment, and inappropriate behavior policy.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is adopted. Next, we'll move to the Transportation Committee. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The next three business items have to do with progress on the Orange Line, and Charles Carlson is here to make a presentation, and then I can make the motions.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Councilmember Rodriguez. Charles Carlson, Director of ERT Projects for Metro Transit. A quick update this afternoon on the Orange Line, which is on the 35W corridor south of downtown Minneapolis, our heaviest ridership express bus corridor, where we carry about 14,000 riders a day. With the Orange Line and other growth in this corridor, we expect that to grow to over 26,000 rides a day by 2040. So very significant corridor, also very congested. The busiest road in Minnesota with over 200,000 cars a day on 35W near Lake Street. The Orange Line complements a very robust express bus system that we have in the corridor today. It opens up 56,000 jobs outside of downtown Minneapolis, as well as service to 81,000 residents outside of downtown, with all-day improved transit frequency, new service in evenings and on weekends, better serving downtown trips, especially to the jobs corridor along 494. The overall project budget is $150.7 million. We've retained that project cost estimate for a number of years now. This estimate now reflects 90% design of our station, 60% design of the second component of the project, which is an underpass of 494, and actually the bulk of construction being within a shared contract with MnDOT for construction that is currently underway, so reflecting the bid prices of that work will construct our Lake Street station as well as a new ramp into downtown Minneapolis. I'll show a couple pictures of progress to date in a second here. From the overall project standpoint, we're in a good position where in March, Congress appropriated over $400 million to the Small Starts program, of which the Orange Line is an active project. So FTA will be working to allocate those funds across the year, and we hope to be designated for some of that funding. We have sought that Small Starts grant agreement. This would allow us to move into construction of the other components of the project early next year. We're actually actively under a grant review process by FTA. FTA came for a workshop in April to review the scope and schedule and budget of the project. They're actually spending much of the week next week with us to undergo their risk assessment. So we feel very good about the readiness steps that are currently underway as FDA continues to consider their discretionary investment choices of their Small Starts money. All the rest of the project's funds are committed, so we have state and county contributions in place, commitments fully in place for the project, and only the $74 million Small Starts share remains. The conditions that we're hoping to improve upon are illustrated in this slide. So currently there's a stairs, if you can call it a set of stairs, up to the freeway level at Lake Street, where we have a pretty modest bus shelter on the outside corner, connecting service below, pretty meager as well. So improving on these conditions is the focus of a project we have underway. That work is actually integrated within a very large road project that MnDOT is leading. So this is about a $240 million project. MnDOT awarded this. We executed an agreement with MnDOT last August, and we've begun construction. Major road construction related to this effort is underway and will actually get quite a bit more noticeable in the corridor beginning next month. So most notably the downtown entrance and exit from 35W, which is called Trunk Highway 65, will close for about 4 months. So during that time, we are adding quite a bit of transit service. We're adding roughly 50 trips in the corridor between our service as well as service with MBTA that will be added to the corridor, and transit advantages. So peak period transit with transit-only lanes on Park and Portland Avenues in Minneapolis, and a transit-only exit from an entrance from 35W at 31st Street in South Minneapolis, so we can quickly move many thousands of people through this corridor efficiently as possible. That phase of work will end in the October timeframe, but road construction and delays will continue in the corridor through 2021. So it's an extended construction timeline in conjunction with MnDOT, as well as part of implementing the Orange Line project. The photos here illustrate the current work that's underway. The Franklin Avenue Bridge has been closed since last summer. They have placed the beams, and this image shows the pouring of the deck on that bridge. So that bridge will be back open again soon, and we'll be able to put buses and cars and pedestrians back across that bridge, while the next bridges in the sequence would then begin construction. Other work in the corridor
Chair?
relates to
Please, Member Dorfman.
When soon?
in the next Madam Chair, Councilmember Dorfman, in the next month or so.
Oh, is that right?
So the bridge deck's in place. It's curing. It needs to cure for a certain period of time, and then they'd be adding sidewalks and railings. And things like that.
Thanks.
You thought a couple years, is that?
MnDOT.
26th Street and 28th Street would be the next bridges up. So Franklin needs to be back in place before those bridges can come down. In addition, the 38th Street Bridge is currently closed. They're redecking that bridge as well. Here's what when we're done with all this. Here are the conditions at Lake Street that we would have. There'd be a new min-pass lane on the inside, in the center of 35W. That would exit to our new Lake Street station. So this would be a fully accessible 2-level station here at Lake Street with an improved sheltered condition above, as well as improvements below that are in the lower left of this slide. So a much more open, inviting plaza space for this line, as well as our planned B-line arterial BRT corridor below on Lake Street. So this would open in 2021. Continuing from the center, so we have stations in the center at 46th Street, Lake Street, and we could actually continue in that center lane straight into downtown with this new 12th Street ramp that we'd construct into downtown Minneapolis. So a new bus-only ramp connecting buses directly to downtown. This will benefit not just the Orange Line, but all the express bus routes on roughly 25 other routes in the corridor. Faster service and a continuous transit advantage from the Burnsville-Lakeville area all the way through downtown Minneapolis. To advance this, the business items before you tonight relate to funding of the project, specifically to incoming grants from the counties to continue our work in 2018. So we have about $17 million of work in the 2018 plan. $7 million or so relates to state-funded elements of the project. There's also $10 million that relates to continued construction on 35W. And for that construction work, we have agreements that we're proposing in 3 different forms. All of these relate to the county's assumption of the county's Transit Improvement Board commitments to the project, as well as the local shares that the counties have committed. 86% of this $10 million is coming from Hennepin County, and that's further divided between their CTIP commitment, which is $6.45 million, as well as the Hennepin County Regional Rail Authority commitment, which would make up 2.15, or 86% of that total. The other 14% comes from Dakota County. That would be split again between their CTIP commitment that they'd be paying from their Regional Railroad Authority, as well as the original Rail Authority commitment to the project. Together, those shares make up 1.4 million. So altogether, we'd be using this to advance the project, and both counties approved these actions and the rail authorities on March 27th of 2018. So I turn it back to Councilmember Rodriguez to propose the actions.
Thank you. Are there any questions before we do that? No? Okay. Member Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute Amendment 2 to the agreement with Hennepin County, increasing the grantor's participation from $8 million to $14.45 million, and extending the grant activity period to December 31st, 2018.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is adopted. Member Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and this is business item 2018-97. And I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute Amendment 1 to the agreement with Hennepin County Regional Railroad Authority, increasing maximum county participation by $2,150,000 up to an amount not to exceed $4,810,000, and extending the agreement term through December 31st, 2018.
Thank you. A second? Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is adopted. Member Rodriguez.
Business item 2018-98. I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute an interagency agreement with Dakota County Regional Rail Authority to fund Metro Orange Line project activities.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this? I think at the conclusion of these three, I think it's really helpful to know that we have all of the local funding in place and that we will be working over the coming months, as Charles mentioned, on getting that federal funding component in place for the Orange Line. So I think this is really great progress and want to thank our funding partners for their support. I also wanted to note, I don't know if you caught on the very beginning, the first slide, that Charles, so his title has changed from senior manager to director. And that was just, it went by really quickly. I just wanted to say congratulations. So all those in favor on this item say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is adopted. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to you, Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So 2018-105 is the recommended D-Line station plan release, and Scott Janowiak and Charles Carlson is here to present.
Great, thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, just for the record, I think he's blushing.
Is it?
Madam Chair, the first
Member
time
Dorfman?
Charles briefed us at Hennepin County a few years ago, he left the room and people were going, is he still in high school?
Now he's our
Thank you, Madam
director
Chair.
of PRT.
So we'll give an overview. The focus tonight is on the D-Line, release of the D-Line recommended station plan, but we wanted to spend just a minute talking about kind of the bigger picture of the program. We're before Transportation Committee periodically, but for the full council, wanted to share a brief update. So the focus will be the action plan, the recommendation for the station plan. We'll come back to this. Just wanted to talk about the system. The A-line we opened on June 11th of 2016, and we've seen ridership grow quite a bit in this corridor. The first year of operations, we were up 32% over the year before. The corridor has continued to grow, including in April. Even despite all the terrible weather we had in April, we still had grown in the corridor over the year before. So we've seen tremendous success with the A-line project, very warm reception of the project by customers in the corridor, and we've worked hard to continue the growth and development of this system. We've continued that. Actually, a month ago, we started construction of the C-Line. So the C-Line runs up Penn Avenue North to Brooklyn Center, and a number of the different stations are under construction. A significant partnership with Hennepin County to advance this in tandem with a road project in the corridor. So many thanks to your support. We're excited to be underway with construction, even in unexpected winter conditions that are shown in the lower right of the slide. So we lost a day to trying to shell out our job site, but we're on track and underway moving forward.
Madam Chair,
Please, Member
I
Cunningham.
did have a question on this. I've gotten a few calls from some of the businesses along the side. Are we doing anything to ensure that we keep those businesses open and mitigate issues of access for those businesses? Because I'm getting calls about that, and I just want to know what is the plan?
Yes, Madam Chair, Councilmember Cunningham, we have outreach staff in the corridor that are actively responding to those issues. We are maintaining access to businesses in the corridor. It isn't always as convenient to, as we're undergoing the most significant phases of construction, but working to maintain access across the major cross streets in particular at all times, which is which is a challenge. For the most part, we're able to do that. There have been a couple days where there's been a full closure. And so we've been working with our outreach staff to make sure that that is known ahead of time, that businesses and residents can plan.
Madam Chair, I'll just
Member
follow
Cunningham,
up
sure.
offline.
Okay.
I have some other questions, but I don't want to keep
Great.
everyone tied up.
Thank you.
As we look to the bigger system, we have 11 lines that are planned. These 11 lines carry in the area of 80,000 riders every day. So this is a significant portion of our transit system. With rapid bus line improvements and the development of the system, by 2040 we can expect that to grow by 70,000 rides. We're carrying just on the system 150,000 rides a day for an upfront investment in the $400 to $500 million. So a very significant, very robust expansion of our bus system, as well as significant improvement to today's existing riders. So we are underway right now in the planning of the D line that we're narrowing, that we're beginning to focus on the completion of. But we'll be shifting gears and we'll begin the planning of the B line, which runs on Lake Street and Marshall Avenue in Minneapolis and St. Paul. So that'll be the next corridor up. We're also starting the early planning work associated with the E line, where Minneapolis has two major reconstruction projects, and the E line on Hennepin Avenue could nicely dovetail with that corridor. But we're also looking to select the next corridors that would advance in the pipeline. Some of our next steps would be a refresh of all the lines that we've looked at, both from the readiness as well as the prospects for choosing a next line with you, as well as looking at a broader list. The interest in and success of the A line has really grown awareness and interest in this program. So we've heard expressed to us interest in additional corridors beyond this 11. So we'd like to take a look at some of those, work that into our work plan for the upcoming year. So we want to bring another look at this to a committee of the whole meeting in the next month or so, just to give some more background about where we've come and where we may head next. But before then, we're also working closely on funding the D-Line project. So as the station plan is advancing, we're also looking at the project budget. We've estimated the cost of the D-Line, which is 18 miles long, at $75 million. So our most expansive rapid bus corridor. We have identified, or we anticipate, about $40 million from existing sources, both from regional solicitation awards, our committed match to those awards, as well as replacement bus funding or funds we've identified to advance the engineering design of the corridor. The remainder is about 35. So we're working to identify sources for that. The governor's proposed bonding bill would have $50 million for this program. D-Line would become fully funded from that funding level, as well as advancing the construction, engineering, and planning of future lines. So today, the focus will really be on the D-Line station plan, and I'll turn it over to Scott to introduce the plan.
Thanks, Charles. Madam Chair, council members, I'm Scott Janoyak, Senior Planner in the BRT office, spending a lot of time on the D-Line, and in particular, the station planning process for the D-Line, which has 3 steps: a draft plan, a recommended plan, and an approved plan. Right now, today's action is related to that middle step, that recommended plan. So we released a draft plan in early February and had a 30-day comment period related to that plan. We collected input and developed a report back with some revisions. That report back is this recommended plan that we're on the cusp of releasing to the public here tonight. That would then lead to the final plan later this summer, after which the station locations, as they're communicated in the station plan, would really be confirmed to set up our detailed design and engineering phase the second half of this year into 2019, ultimately leading towards construction in 2020 and 2021. So now is the time when we're really solidifying those station location decisions within this station plan. So what exactly is in the station plan? It's quite a large document, but I would say it's looking to answer really two main questions. Where will stations be located at the intersection level? And then within that intersection, what corners will have platforms? So those are the two core questions the plan is looking to answer. And then there's other information in there that we try to provide to help our customers and the general public learn more about context and more information. So we do talk about other alternatives we considered for station locations, but ultimately aren't recommending. And then also, to the extent possible, we talk about station details and general rapid bus project information, like a great improvement, which will be the use of 60-foot articulated buses where you can board through all three doors. So we try to provide more information like that throughout the report. But at a high level, this map you see on the left side of the slide really is the scale we're talking about. So intersections and corners, not necessarily at the scale of feet and inches. That would come later in the design phase. So I mentioned we released a draft plan in early February. We released that February 5th. That followed a 30-day comment period followed where we did a lot of outreach and engagement throughout the corridor. We collected over 100 comments, but I'll say we had many more conversations. Things we did included 6 open houses. 3 of those were at our own transit centers, so that you'll see some pictures from our transit center events on this slide here. We had social media posts related to those events. I think one of the most important things we did was ride the bus with our customers on Route 5, asking them what they think of our station plan. So getting on the bus and sitting down next to our customers and riding with them, we did that a fair amount. And then we also have ongoing agency coordination too with all of our partners throughout the corridor to really make sure the stations we recommend in the station plan are what we ultimately want to design and build. So all those comments and input we collected throughout February and into early March, we took those comments and really developed them into the recommended plan. So what exactly did we hear? I think related to specific station questions, in general, comments we received indicated, let's build more stations to help increase that access to rapid bus. You'll see in the next slide that did result in the recommended plan having 3 additional stations compared to the draft plan. And then we received a lot of just general comments that we will be taking into consideration as we move throughout the project development process, in particular design and service planning. So a lot of questions about platform design considerations and questions about interaction with recent and upcoming reconstruction activities, how will platforms interact with bicycle facilities, things of that nature that definitely will inform our design process. And then a fair amount of questions about service planning. How much local service will there be? What will the span of service be? And those questions, the answers to those questions will continue to be solidified as we move later into different phases of the project development process. So talked about 3 major revisions from the draft to the recommended plan. This slide here communicates those major changes, the 3 station additions. Those would be at 7th Street in Bryant and near North Minneapolis, Chicago and 48th Street in South Minneapolis, and then Portland and 70th Street and the city of Richfield. At a high level, we definitely received comments supporting the addition of each of these stations individually. I'll say that prompted planning staff to take a look at what are some other considerations that could support additional stations at these locations. And I think kind of an overly simplified explanation for these locations in particular would be at 7th Street and Bryant, the walking conditions can be difficult. So an additional station should help improve access for customers in that area. At Chicago and 48th Street, we heard a lot about the need to serve that commercial node at Chicago and 48th. So this station addition will do that. And then at Portland and 70th Street, we really took a closer look at what that local and rapid bus service mix could look like long term. And after hearing comments to support an additional station at Portland and 70th, we think this additional station at this location here will help ensure long-term that, yes, transit access and rapid bus access in particular for the city of Richfield, we know will continue to be high long-term. So all these comments shaped by the engagement process, it's really, I consider it a report back of what we heard between the draft and the recommended plan with some very real and concrete station plan revisions. There will be a 30-day public comment period attached to the recommended plan. So with tonight's release, that 30-day comment period would last until I think June 8th. So there'd be an additional opportunity for public comment. We would listen to that input and then come back to the council later this summer, after which we would seek a final approval of that station plan from the council. Once we would have that final approval, that's when we would say, this is where the stations will be located. They're confirmed, and that confirmation really gives confidence to the design process to have our engineers design the best project possible when they know exactly what intersections and what corners platforms will be built at. So final plan for approval in summer of 2018. With that, I guess we can turn it back to Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, if it's okay, I just wanted to comment that I really appreciate this presentation because we were overtime at Transportation Committee and they had to go so fast. And I asked, could you briefly explain why you were adding the 3 additional stations? And you gave like the best concise answer that I think I've ever heard. So, so thank you for that. So the proposed action for 2018-105, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the release of the recommended D-line station plan for public review and comment, and direct staff to collect public comments through Friday, June 8th, 2018, summarize comments, and report the findings to the Metropolitan Council.
Thank you. Is there a second? Any discussion on this item? Member McCarthy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We didn't really have a chance to talk about this, but as I'm looking at this more, I see that you mentioned you're going to do the 3-door, possibility of 3-door buses. And so as you're looking into that, are you going to take in consideration, like the possibility of fare evasion as we're going through this area? I'm learning more and more about Route 5. And so I just, I know it's a really difficult route. And so are you going to take that in consideration, how we may mitigate some fare evasion using such a large bus?
Go ahead.
Madam Chair and Councilmember, yes. So we also will have these vehicles on the C line on Penn Avenue North. We are working closely with Metro Transit Police, who will be conducting the fare inspection along the C line. They're developing a plan right now, working closely with them how that will go.
Great. Any other discussion, Member Munt?
Madam Chair, Scott, I really appreciate the extra effort of getting on the Route 5 and engaging our customers and getting their input about stations. I don't think anybody knows better than the Route 5 passengers about what they need. So thank you for that effort.
Great. Member Wolf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this looks great. I'm really excited about it. I do ride the 5 sometimes, and it's a very, very busy route. I'm wondering, are you working with the city of Minneapolis at all about any sort of enhanced snow removal? I know we usually take care of our stations, but getting to the station sometimes can be a problem in the wintertime because because there's so many people walking in the corridor, they pound down the snow before it gets shoveled, and getting safely to and from the stations, and even getting down the street on a bad winter can be a bit of a challenge.
Madam Chair, council members, winter maintenance is definitely a part of the commitment of stations in terms of snow removal. We have many thousands of standard bus stops where it's difficult to maintain after a winter storm. But with our rapid bus network, we're committed to kind of elevated winter maintenance at our rapid bus platforms in particular.
Member Wolf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand that part. It's the rest of the corridor, not just at the stations. Is there any commitment on the part of the city of Minneapolis or Hennepin County or whoever maintains that road to make sure the rest of it is passable as well?
Madam Chair and Councilmember, I think, through the D-line station planning process, we've been pretty closely engaged with the city, and from that, we're sensing a strong commitment to improving pedestrian experiences through the corridor. The maintenance that goes along with that, obviously, ultimately, at this point, falls to the individual property owners adjacent, but I think through the major employers, through some of the business improvement districts that have been proposed, there's interest in improving conditions out there, as well as investment by the city on these major pedestrian corridors, and we'd only be increasing pedestrian activity to clear corners, to clear ramps, sort of not just the snow event itself, but clearing ramps in the aftermath as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member
Madam Chair,
Dorfman.
can I just follow up on that? So it seems like there's a lot of areas where, not just in Minneapolis, but certainly I can think of some, where there's a transit station, and then in the immediate area, there's roadways owned by multiple government entities, where you can have a city road and a MnDOT off ramp and a county road, all within. And so it seems to me, I vaguely recall that in those areas, there's some sort of cooperative agreement who's going to do snow maintenance, that it's not each individual entity in charge of their little piece of roadway within a half a block radius. Is that true, or?
Madam Chair and Councilmember, certainly in some cases it is. The Lake Street Station on the Orange Line is an example where there's a lot going on, and it's not just
46.
whose is what, but who's best positioned,
Yeah.
and then how do we allocate costs. So in some cases that is very much in the plan.
I feel like you're raising, though, just a concern that we hear kind of all over of just what is our snow room, how does snow removal work? How does accessibility work from an ADA community or just actually anyone who's walking around? And I think knowing that it's really challenging given the environment that we live in to have some snow removal and have everyone adhere from a city perspective or adjacent property owner perspective to all of the guidelines that we have for efficient snow removal. But it could be worth an additional conversation with the city, just in particular on if we're making targeted investments on certain corridors. Any other comments? Member McCarthy.
Just one more question, Madam Chair. Will the current local route still continue as is? Do you foresee it continue as is and as often, or will that be reduced somehow when this line comes in?
Yeah, Madam Chair, council members, I think at a high level, the D line would become the primary transit service on this corridor. Service we think about every 10 minutes. That local service, that Route 5, again at a high level, would continue to run, but at a less frequent level, so about every half hour. In terms of kind of the details of what exactly that frequency or that span of service and frequency of service, and even the termini of that local service, I think those questions would really become solidified later in the project development process. But at a high level, Route 5 would continue to run, but about every half hour.
Great. Any other thoughts or comments? Well, I will share that the Senate released its bonding proposal today and does not include any money for transit really at all. The $50 million we had requested for arterial BRT build out, as well as the $50 million for the Haywood Bus Garage. So at the moment, when we look at both the House and the Senate proposals for bonding, there really isn't any funding for transit, which is really disappointing from my perspective, especially given when we testified on our arterial BRT system in the House Transportation Finance Committee. You could see really broad bipartisan support for building out the ABRT network, just given how successful it is and how robust the return on investment is. So I think we'll be working in the next, really here, just several days left of session to try to continue to promote funding for this network. So thank you for your presentation. And you already made the motion and it was seconded. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is adopted. Thank you for your presentation. Now we move to reports of council members. Anyone want to share a report? Member Melander?
Just attended an event with Alan Arthur's annual Beyond Bricks and Mortar, so it was well attended, and I got picked on. And then I'm just also happy for the new addition to the council chamber, but not understanding the symmetry of it.
What was that?
Look around.
Oh, the photo.
It's your photo.
Oh.
Yep. I thank you, Member Melander, for pointing that out. Really appreciate that. Any other reports, Member Munt?
Madam Chair, yesterday we broke ground for the Elevate Apartments at Southwest Station in Eden Prairie, and it was the poster child of what TOD should look like in a suburban area. We contributed $750,000 to create affordability there. So there will eventually be 222 apartments, 20% of them affordable. And there was a huge shout out to Paul Burns and our amazing Livable Communities team. Also, I attended the Homes for All campaign kickoff in Minneapolis, and it was really extraordinary because some of the most creative ideas about addressing the housing crisis are coming from the community level. And the kickoff showed a tremendous amount of community support to create the political will to fund and look at non-money related issues for affordable and fair housing.
Terrific. Thank you. Member Wolf?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll continue on the Paul Burns Admiration Day. I was down in Hastings last week for the celebration of the Art Space affordable housing project in Hastings. It's on a parcel that was vacant for 30 years in downtown Hastings. And the celebration was amazing. They had, usually when you have something like that, it's kind of the usual suspects. You get the people who worked on the projects, the residents, some elected officials. It was huge. There were so many people from the community that showed up there, and you could just see the genuine support for the project, as well as the impact that it's having overall downtown. They've been working on a number of projects down there, but now the vacant lot right behind it, between it and the river, has a proposal for another development. So it just keeps moving down the chain. You really see some good energy in downtown Hastings, and it's something that people have been working on for a long time, but it's finally coming to fruition. The other thing that I went to was a State of the City for the city of Lakeville, and one of the things that stood out for me was they had their best year ever for development, $270 million of development in Lakeville this last year. That beat their previous record of $250 million in 2003. So things are really recovering development-wise from the recession.
Great, thank you. Any other reports? Member Commerce?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to report briefly on an opportunity that I had to represent the council at the Urban Transit Infrastructure Conference in Toronto about 2 weeks ago. A couple of things that were really compelling about it. I had the opportunity to share our region's story and kind of the narrative about the reimagination and redeployment of the transit system regionally here. That was really well received, and I think was an interesting kind of additional element to the rest of the conference's proceedings. Two other items, though. One thing is that I'd never been to Toronto before. I was amazed and impressed by the extent to which they use right-of-way in a very intensive and creative way. You don't hear the phrase, "that won't fit here," in Toronto. They're very intent on maximizing the use of relatively narrow right-of-way in a lot of cases. The other thing is that there was a lot of discussion at this conference of a consortium model which they use to finance and implement transit improvements, and that is really a co-location both in a legal sense and in a physical sense of project investors, public and private, And then really all of the players involved in implementing a transit project. Really interesting and I think innovative, probably not entirely allowed under state statute here, but I think there are some really interesting insights that we can still glean from that work. So I'll be offering a little more detailed report to the Transportation Committee, but I wanted to offer it more broadly too. Thanks.
Thank you. Sounds interesting. Member Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nothing as serious as the last report. I had the opportunity to spend the afternoon at Cal Ripken Field with the Metro Transit Police and a lot of children and there were police from all over, including Rochester, that participated in this community gathering at Farview Park in North Minneapolis. It was fantastic. It was spectacular. For those of you that missed it, if you have one of these in your location, I'd say go to it because it was a great gathering of police and community and really helping the kids play ball. And so I got to be out there with that. So about 200 kids participated in this, and it was just fun. So once in a while, we get to do fun stuff at the Metropolitan Council, and I got to do that last Saturday.
Excellent. Any other reports? Well, I think we kicked off the Gold Line Corridor Management Committee. I had the opportunity to visit with each of the cities along the corridor just to kind of hear from them about what was going on, what some of their what they're excited about the Gold Line overall and what they're concerned about. So it was really nice to hear and see that kind of firsthand. And, you know, I think you all know that we're in the final stretch here at the legislative session, so we're just spending a lot of time focusing on that. We opened bids for Southwest LRT last week. I think you all saw that. So there's some activity going on there and reviewing those bids and seeing kind of what comes next. And with that, I think if there's no other reports, I can take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.